This jet is Horizon's newest release, but how does it stack up to our review system? Hey there, I'm John. This is Two Brothers RC, and this is the E-flite Viper 64mm. Now, I know what you're thinking. Another Viper. Yes, this is the third one. There is a Viper 90, a Viper 70, and now a Viper 64. If we follow in the Timber's footsteps, maybe we'll see a Twin Viper, a Super Viper, or a Woody Viper. Now, it's rare when a plane doesn't fly worse the smaller that it gets. There is a reason why bigger flies better is something that you often hear grunted at the RC field. But how does this one actually stack up? Surprisingly, this is quite possibly the most lightly loaded Viper that I've ever flown. I'd go as far as to say that this thing is the fun cub of EDF jets. You might think that I'm clowning here. I'm not.
Got it.
The wing loading on this thing is ultra low, with big control surfaces and tons of tail authority. So, how does this jet actually stack up to the 64mm review scale? Let's find out together. In terms of agility, the Viper 64 is very agile, surprisingly so, with plenty of control surface authority. The only aspect of the jet that I felt was kinda mushy was roll input at slower speeds. That could also be that I was just trying to roll it too fast after a hand launch. It carves clean lines while maneuvering, and it's actually relatively fast for a 64mm jet. Now, you're not going to get a ton of flight time if you peg the throttle, so judicious throttle management will be key if you want to keep the jet in the air for a reasonable amount of time. We'll cover flight time in depth coming up. Everything that you're seeing done on screen is flown with stock E-flite components. I didn't modify any servos, no push rods were changed. This is a bone stock jet except for one tiny change. I unlocked the receiver to enable 150 travel. That's it. This thing performs so well, it's hard to believe that it's not a bigger jet. The light wing load made a humongous difference in the way it flies, and it doesn't have any issues carrying inertia through spins and tumbles either. Getting a neutral center of gravity is as simple as putting the battery at the back of the tray, which is stupid easy to do. Other planes that I fly require way more work to balance like this. Taking off and landing is a breeze regardless of whether you're hand tossing or flying from the fixed wheels. Now, I will say that I felt like it could use a little bit more thrust, but the metric is adequate thrust, which the Viper definitely has, not John wants more than adequate thrust. Stall recovery is really easy. You know how I know? Because this is what stalling looks like. It does try to drop a wing if you're flying a pack that's heavier than a 2200 Spectrum, but it will absolutely fly around in high alpha. Invert it too. It's not even hard to do this. Pull the elevator until the jet stalls, then feed in throttle as it comes to a dead stop in the air. If it drops a wing to the right, stay calm and add left rudder. If it drops a wing to the left, freak out and crash. Nah, you're good, just add right rudder, that's literally all you have to do. Just add rudder and it's good to go. It's really well behaved because of how light it is. The Viper 64 earns a 5 out of 5 here.
No mixing required. Factory stock. Except for 150 travel, but you know how we do here on Two Brothers.
Moving on to flight time, I spent most of my time flying the Viper aggressively. That's how I tend to enjoy flying. Sometimes wide open throttle, sometimes lazy flat turns. If you're flying from grass, you're not going to eat up a ton of the pack trying to get off of the ground. If you've flown from grass before, or you're stuck with grass as your primary runway surface, you know what I'm talking about. Many jets suffer on grass, especially in flight time, because it takes so much power out of a battery just to rotate. Not with this little jet. Again, light wing load. It makes a big difference. Something heavy requires more airspeed to fly. Something light requires less. Even with grass touch and goes, which rob the plane of a bit of momentum, I still managed 4 minutes of flight. If I'd treated it more like a fun cub and less like a fighter jet, I would have gotten at least 5 minutes of flight, but since I didn't fly it like a fun cub exclusively, I'm not going to give it a pass here. Even if you could easily get that much time. If it didn't happen on camera, it didn't happen for the review. If you want a jet that puts around like a cub, the Viper is definitely something I would recommend. Dump the flaps and keep the angle of attack low. It won't stall. Hell, you'll be flying it at least 15 miles per hour. It's nuts. Viper scores a 4 out of 5 here, with 4 minutes being the best you can reasonably expect from a Spectrum 2200 battery. Landing gear. At this scale, they're a point of contention. I know some dudes scoff at the idea of flying 64mm jets because they don't come with retracts, and I gotta say, being retractless is a good thing, actually. Now I say this because the jet's awesome slow flight envelope would suffer from added weight. Retracts at the single 64mm scale, and I know I'm gonna eat some hate here for saying it, are a gimmick, and they're not a particularly good gimmick either. Current tech would make retracts add a lot of wing load for nothing more than wheels go up, wheels go down. Or they'd be lightweight and flimsy, unable to withstand some of the landings that the average RC pilot might put them through. And then the company making the jet has to deal with videos trashing the gear from YouTube pilots who can fly really well, but then choose to fly poorly to get clicks and views. Adding to this, those of you who enjoy the performance of the jet without the wheels installed will be grateful to know that the belly of the jet is reinforced for grass landing. The stabilizer fins do pop off if they encounter resistance, but this is by design to avoid damaging them or the phone that they're affixed to. They're magnetically attached, so just pop them back on if they come off and stow them back into the jet when you're ready to pack up for the day. The jet flies really good just the way it is, and even more, removing the wheels takes like 30 seconds. Now, the gear do have a flaw. While Horizon has previously shipped the Viper 70 with soft wheels, this one comes with rock-hard wheels. The suspension is pretty great though, and that does make up for it. I didn't notice any bouncing issues on either grass or pavement at the new club field that we're flying from, RDRC in Raleigh, North Carolina. Yep, that's right, Two Brothers has a new home and we're flying from a club field now. The runway isn't as long as what we're used to, but it's wider, and the space is wide open compared to the old airport. We might fly there again in the future, but for now, let's enjoy the 4 out of 5 score here and move on to the fit and finish section. When you make a model aircraft smaller, some sacrifices are made to keep weight down. One of those sacrifices here is bare foam. Those of you who watch TBRC reviews know that I don't care much for stickers, hence why they're a review metric, but unpainted foam is divisive. Some people don't care about it, some people do. I'm 50-50 on it. On one hand, I know it's unpainted to keep the wing load down, and I tend to prefer painted foam. On the other hand, I don't care because it flies so damn good. When something can fly well, I'm more apt to overlook issues with it, unless the entire plane is riddled with issues. And that tendency that I have to overlook things that might be a minor inconvenience is exactly why I use a 25-point review system. Even if it may or may not bother me, what matters is whether it hits the review criteria or not. You can decide if those points that we're using matter. The Viper 64 earns a 3 out of 5 in fit and finish.
I love it. You would have never thought that this thing could do it, but it can.
Moving on to avionics and lighting, the Viper 64 hits every review point here. The servos are reliable and fast enough for the kind of flying that this jet is capable of performing. They also don't care that I'm doing high-speed tumbles. Other plastic-geared servos might have stripped, but these held up. The ESC definitely had no overheating issues, and I wasn't being nice to it, but that might be because we're entering winter. Either way, I don't think it's going to be a problem in summer. The lighting system is both something that exists and something that's correct. The lights look phenomenal, actually, kinda shocked at how good they look. Or that lights were added at all at this scale. The tray makes it easy to shift the battery to any position you want, from nose heavy to neutral balance, just the way it should be out of the box. 5 out of 5.
It's so ridiculous. I'm flat turning a Viper 64. I never would have thought that this would be possible.
It looks so unnatural.
It really does.
The Viper 64 scores a 20 out of 25 overall. Pretty respectable. Most 64mm jets tend to have lower scores even with the custom tailored review system that takes the unique aspects of 64mm jets into account. Every class of airplane on TBRC gets its own review system, that way we're not holding 64mm jets up to the same standards that we would hold a 90mm jet to. The smaller something gets, the more important wing load becomes and the less likely it is that higher end features make an appearance on the model. That's one of the reasons why this jet doesn't have retracts. I got a couple of days flying the Viper 64 and I gotta say that I really enjoyed it. While it didn't have all of the thrust that I was hoping for, it still flew impressively well. And what shocks me still is that I could do high alpha with no physical mods or receiver changes, no special mixes, just a good center of gravity, a light wing load, and a pegged elevator stick. But it's not just high alpha that the jet specializes in. Slow flight is absurdly good. It absolutely floors me that the Viper flies as slow as it does. It handles slow flight like a delta wing, yet it isn't a delta. Make it make sense. If you like what we do here at Two Brothers, and you appreciate these kinds of in-depth reviews on jets that you're interested in, smash that super thanks button to toss some bucks our way for giving you our perspective on this bird. And if you think the Viper 64 is a great jet for you, pick it up from the affiliate link in the description. We only want you to buy stuff from our links if you think it's right for you. Hop on Discord and let us know what you think, and get ready for next Saturday's annual crash reel. It's a good one. See you guys next week.